Hello, everyone. Meteorologist Hutch Johnson joining you. Cold waves of air working their way across the lower 48 tonight as we head into your, hump day. It's looking like a brutal batch of temperatures continuing to wind their way through the south as another storm system makes its way onto the Pacific Northwest. We'll detail all of it right now, and let's get started with what you're looking at here. These are indeed upper level temperatures, and where you see these greenish shades of colors here where the hand is, that's a very cold pool. Right now, it's spreading through the Pacific and heading out toward the Atlantic coast, rather. And we'll continue to see waves swirling around Hudson Bay in Canada and pushing out across the nation as we go through the next couple of weeks. And right now, we also have some inclement weather in the form of some very brutal temperatures. Very brutal temperatures. And we also have some major snow working its way across the Pacific Northwest. Now, let's go ahead and look at that as we do on the radar right now across the nation. I'll load that up for you as we go through. And what we're looking at here out in the Pacific Northwest is some significant snow and wind punching its way onshore once again. And here is a look at some mixed precipitation that you're seeing in pink. So from Portland, Oregon and Seattle, we do have another system making its way onshore, and looping this shows you that that movement is making its way, from the Pacific and into the central part of the states of Oregon and Washington. Also for places like Reno, Nevada, Sacramento, Northern California, up by Chico and Redding, we do have some very heavy rain moving on. Basically, San Francisco and the Bay Area and points north pushing in. And again, not snow yet, but as we get into the elevated terrain, that's a possibility. Montana, we have another Clipper-like system pushing its way through there with some snow showers pushing in. As we work our way off to the east, we continue to see streams of snow, very persistent downwind. And again, once we have this air that's cold moving over the open waters of the Great Lakes, we get the lake effect snow just downwind. And that wind is going along the longer shores of our lakes here, picking up a lot more moisture and dumping it near Dunkirk is one area we're seeing some enhanced snowfall bands that are very persistent throughout the day. Hamburg and on up into areas just south of Buffalo. Sheldon also picking some in as the lake effect machine is in full swing. We do have lake effect snow as well, not far from the Syracuse area north as we go into Oswego, as well as areas north of there. Into parts of the areas north of Toronto, I should say, off the big lakes, and Maine getting pounded with very heavy snow from Presque Isle all the way down to Augusta, as we have heavy bands of snow shown here in the dark blues. Now let's talk about this cold, shall we, that's taken hold. And to do that, I want to pop up a look at some of the area temperatures that we have from across the nation. Thanks for joining me. Again, a little bit about me as I load up some more data for you to peruse over with me in real time here. I am a meteorologist who has 26 years of on-air experience. It's a lot of fun to talk about weather. Better part of 20 years also in the field of teaching meteorology at local colleges. So it's a lot of fun to talk about the weather, and we're going to do that right now as we take a look at some actual air temperatures across the deep south. We do have areas where we have freeze warnings, hard freeze warnings, and look at these air temperatures right now as we look into the Shreveport area. So we do have Sulphur Springs, 22 degrees, Texarkana, 20 degrees right now. Factor in the winds, and we have some brutal wind chills as we were talking about moments ago. And now as we dive south even farther, we could see that all the way down to the coast. That's right. All the way to the Gulf Coast, we have in Houston temperatures that are in the mid and upper 20s. Right at Galveston right now, 34 degrees. So that cold Arctic air has punched all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, as you look into New Orleans and the area there, we can zoom in on a few temperatures for your area. We're holding on at freezing, 32 degrees in New Orleans itself, right on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain there. On the south shore, it's 33 this hour. And again, the real cold air as you get up into Baton Rouge, where we have 28 degrees. As we scale out towards Mobile, Alabama, and the panhandle of Florida, we have temperatures in the mid-20s there. And the cold air has taken hold in northern parts of Florida as well. Now it is 36 degrees as we look into the Quincy area in Florida. And then as we go just a little bit north of there, Dothan at 29 degrees. Now, a couple of points of interest here as we go along the Atlantic shore. The mid-Atlantic states are noticing temperatures in the 30s to mid-40s right now. And as we look in on the Columbia area, notice the sharp decline in temperatures out here as we get across the Appalachians. The mountain chain acts as a bowl, if you will, and that bowl will hold in the molasses or the very heavy, dense air mass that is this Arctic air mass sliding out of places like North Dakota, Minnesota, and making its way all the way through the river valley. So as we look at the national picture, we can get a feel for how this air sits into the area. And to do that, I'll put up this detailed image here. And this is basically a look at some forecast temperatures by the morning. These are wind chills, actually. And you're going to notice that the coldest of the wind chills kind of just nestle up against the western banks of the Appalachian chain here. And the coldest of the air also nudges up against the eastern banks, if you will, of the Rocky Mountains. This acts as a bowl, right? And that cold, dense air being heavy like molasses will just flow in, and it kind of sloshes up against those mountain chains, and it kind of guides it, right? Now, the coldest of the air can find, just like water does, right? It's dense. It can find those low spots in river valleys, and that is where we can see it really migrate its way southward. So the Mississippi River Valley and Delta can see that cold air pour right down it into those areas. But it does, because of the elevated terrain of the Appalachians, somewhat protect portions of the coastal area. I mean, somewhat protect. We're talking about a little bit of protection from these wind chills. It's not balmy when you see the teens off the shores of the Carolinas and Georgia as well. So brutally cold temperatures right now across the deep south taking place. Hey, as you're tuning in right now, if you're watching, or as you watch later, I would love it if you've enjoyed the video, to like it. The other thing that I'd really enjoy to see is where you're watching from. It's incredible to see. Thanks, Mike, for watching here. It's good to see you on board, buddy, as well. What's up to you? Fargo-Moorhead area tuning in right now. That is my home turf, if you will, up here in the frozen tundra. Well, we had some stiff upper lippage as we worked our way through this cold snap Arctic stretch. I will tell you this, we had wind chill values up here in the oil patch. This is the oil patch, right? As we look into Williston, North Dakota, Dickinson, North Dakota, Sydney, Montana, in the big sky country. We had wind chills, folks, in the 70s below zero. And with the newer wind chill calculation that started in the early 2000s, I believe 2001, I have never seen 70s below for wind chills, if we're not talking about places like the top of Mount Washington, for instance, where we can have ripping winds over 130 miles per hour. And that can really do a lot to that wind chill. So this kind of cold is not something that we experience frequently in the deep south. And we want to remind our neighbors in the deep south, this is what we northerners do. Number one, dress in layers. Number two, some homes in the deep south don't have heat. Some water pipes in the deep south are not buried very deeply. So a few things that you could do. Number one, never, ever, ever burn fire inside your house. It just seems like the only way to keep yourself warm, but you just can't do it. You cannot bring a barbecue in your house. Don't burn open flames inside your home, because that can be super dangerous. Carbon monoxide, a gas that comes off of all oxidation and burning processes, is deadly. You can't smell it and you can't taste it. So do what you can to, well, kind of congregate in an interior room. Maybe even have multiple people there. Shut the doors. And if you do have heat, that's a wonderful thing. You can stay warm that way. You may want to crack the doors open if you've lost power, and we can check power outages here while I'm talking about that across the U.S. I've got a site saved here I like to visit, and you can check the same thing, because our nation's weather has been very wild heading into the depth of our winter season. So let me see, poweroutage.us. That's right, poweroutage.us, showing some significant power outages out in the state, the great state of Oregon out there. And you folks in Portland and those areas probably not too affected, but the yellow would indicate more than Well, about 10,000 plus people without power. So somewhere between 10 and 50,000 people in the state of Oregon without power. Now, they are not immune, nor are they not familiar with very, very cold air, particularly in the central and eastern reaches of the state of Oregon. But certainly it's something that the coastal areas don't experience as much. So here's a look at those power outages in Oregon while I'm talking about some safety precautions. We see 18,000 without power in the Lane County area. Go north of that just a bit in Lynn County, 2,200 plus folks without power. Now, as you peruse that, and as we take a look at some temperatures across the nation here while I'm scanning about and visiting with you about safety, it really is important to just make sure that you have what you need to stay warm in the house. And if there's no heat, a few tricks. You can crack cupboard doors that have drains in them, okay? You can trickle water. You don't need to run at full blast, but you can trickle the water at a slow pace, a little faster than a drip, and that can help keep water pipes from freezing. You may need to do that for both the hot water and the cool water as you want that water to keep running. So again, a few tips there. Don't burn open burn fires inside your home. And it seems up north to us to be something that we just inherently know, but that's not always the case. For some of our neighbors who don't experience these type of temperatures over or regularly, let's just say it that way. So as we look at some of the air temperatures now in North Dakota, we're 2 below, but look, we have temperatures out in the Green Bay area as the Green Bay Packers are celebrating a big W over Dallas this past weekend in the playoffs. They're 3 below there up by Wausau. It's 2 above. It's a heat wave there. Now, as we look out towards Cleveland, we're seeing temperatures there above 0, but still way below freezing. And New York, how about that? As we look out there, we have temperatures offshore in the 20s, and we can see this batch of precipitation out over the Atlantic here. That is where the cold air has slid and made its way out to. So it's moving offshore, off into the Atlantic. Temperatures in the 30s and upper 30s, low 40s from Williamsport all the way down towards Jacksonville as we move into Myrtle Beach, 40. Well, it says 46 there for Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, 42. My apologies there. And out near Savannah, Georgia, and that area, we have 45, mid 40s there for your area, and sneaking down into those teens. So it's brutally cold. Pine Bluff and Little Rock seeing temperatures in the single digits. And look at that sub-zero reading there as we cross the border. This is a look at Grove. And it is 4 below 0 out there, and that wind speed now 5 miles per hour. So at least the wind isn't terribly strong as we look through. Now a quick look at our forecast. Shall we look at this? Okay, I'm going to let this load up on this computer. We'll load up a model, and we're going to look at a regional model here that will give us a little bit of detail on some of the snow that'll be working its way in. We're going to look at our precipitation type forecast here. Now, as this loads up, we'll go ahead and put up some times for you so you can see that. And now, here is our wet weather maker making its way on the Pacific Northwest. Look at the rain in North California. This model is what we call initializing fine. Temperatures are warm enough for rain in Northern California. Now watch where the snow spreads as we go through the night. Now this is basically by midnight as we head into your hump day. And check out the heavier snow bands up here by Victoria, Powell River, and the Wenatchee area. And also as we get up into the mountains, Mount Rainier State Park, we quickly see it go from rain. And look at this, Tacoma and Seattle could be seeing some patchy areas of icing as we get up into the terrain just off to the east of Seattle. Portland, same thing goes for you. The heavy snow moves out towards Boise and the Rocky Mountains. The west-facing slopes will get a huge dash of snow, as will some of the south-facing slopes with the winds that this system brings. That snow quickly spreads out into places like Casper, Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the western Rockies of Colorado, as well as much of Utah. in the basin there. Now, as we take a look at the persistent snow that takes place in the northern Rockies as we look into western Montana, northern Idaho, and most of the state of Washington. And that lasts all the way until we get into our Thursday in the morning hours before that system starts breaking up. But look at this. Another batch of very heavy rain makes its way into the Pacific Northwest as this Aleutian low just kind of sits out here and swirls, and batches of energy continue to break off. Okay, Mike Hahn from Mankato, good to see you on board. Thanks so much for joining me in Grafton, North Dakota, Medina, North Dakota, as well as Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. Good to have you on board in the land of 10,000 lakes. Jen Knoll, Davenport, North Dakota, good to have you on board. Now, taking a look at the big picture, what happens to that wave of snow as we get into the Central Plain states? See it kind of work its way across the nation fairly quickly, and it does and will remain persistently unsettled in the mid-Atlantic states as we go through our Tuesday here on the 19th, late week and into the weekend. So it stays unsettled. Nation quiet for the most part in the Central Plain states throughout, with very heavy rain development here as we approach the last full week of the month of January, and a rough one it's been for sure. The coldest of the air does look to moderate just a little bit. Watching from Grand Forks, North Dakota, says Bob Winter. Good to see you. I'm glad you're enjoying the YouTube channel. A lot of folks travel to the south from the great northern plains here to enjoy a little bit of warmth in the winter, but you can't get away from the lack of warmth or the severe lack of heat that we have here across the nation today. All right. Again, thank you so very, very much for watching. My name is Hutch Johnson. I'm a meteorologist of 30 years, spent some time doing research, the better part of 20 years teaching meteorology at the college level, and broadcast meteorology for the better part of 26 years. So it's fun talking about weather. And if you liked what you saw here, I do appreciate your likes, and I appreciate you passing the good word that Hutch here has some national looks at the weather from a meteorologist's perspective. And it's kind of fun to pass along some of the things meteorologists look at when it comes to trying to decide what's going to happen versus what may not happen, and why we choose one model over the other. We'll continue to do that. If you have questions or things you'd like to see or would like to ask about, type them in the comments here. I take time to read those as well. Have a wonderful, wonderful night as we head into your hump day. Enjoy, stay warm, and